Antarctica is known as the coldest place on our entire planet. That is a number that is truly difficult to even imagine. At such extreme cold, a single deep breath could severely damage your lungs. Even steel becomes brittle like glass, and boiling water instantly turns into ice. Now consider that space is even colder, yet it is filled with billions of stars.
Space is not a dark, empty room. It is filled with the intense light of stars.
Billions of these stars are constantly blasting heat into the cosmos. So, why is space not boiling, and why does it feel so cold? To understand this, we first have to ask what temperature actually is. Temperature is essentially a measure of movement, specifically the agitation of particles. The more wildly these particles move and collide, the hotter the object becomes.
When they slow down and move lazily, that represents the cold.
Temperature is not a substance, but a measure of how hard particles are dancing. But what happens in a place where there are no particles at all? Space is an extreme vacuum. In a cubic yard of space, you might find only one atom. Compare that to a cubic yard of air on Earth, which contains billions of atoms. Asking about the temperature of space is like asking about the mood of an empty room.
Space is empty, and those are two very different concepts, even if we blur them together.
So, why does a thermometer in space still read deep below zero? To answer this, we need to look at the three ways heat moves. First is conduction, which is heat passing through direct contact. It works like a relay, where particles knock into one another, transferring energy.
In the vacuum of space, there is nothing for these particles to touch, so conduction is impossible.
The second way is convection, where heat is carried by moving fluids like air or water.
In space, there is no air or fluid to carry heat, so convection cannot occur.
The third way is radiation, which is heat moving as light. Radiation does not need any medium to travel, so it is the only way heat moves in space. Every object, including you, is constantly radiating heat as invisible infrared light. This is how the sun warms your face, even when the surrounding air is cool. The remarkable thing about radiation is that it travels perfectly through a vacuum.
The sun's light and heat reach us across 93 million miles of empty space. In space, conduction and convection are out of the game. Only radiation survives, and that is where the riddle of the thermometer is solved. A thermometer in space cannot trade heat by contact. It can only radiate its own heat away as infrared light.
Because it gets no heat back, the reading keeps falling. it would drop to absolute zero, if not for a faint glow filling the universe.
A thermometer in space cannot trade heat by contact. This background hum keeps the thermometer pinned just a sliver above zero.
That is the real temperature any object left out there would eventually reach. The real danger in space is not the cold, it is the heat.
Think of yourself as an astronaut in a suit.
Your body is like a furnace, constantly producing heat.
On Earth, we shed this heat effortlessly through contact with air.
But in the vacuum of space, those channels shut down.
No cool air touches you to carry the heat away.
You are left with only one way to radiate your heat. Radiation is slow, and your body keeps producing heat at full tilt. The heat piles up inside you, and you risk cooking in your own warmth. Spacesuits are not built to warm astronauts up. They are built to cool them down.
They contain a web of tubes with chilled water running against the skin.
This cooling system pulls away the heat that the astronaut can no longer shed alone. The number one enemy in the vacuum is the risk of stewing in your own juices. Space is cold, but it is not cold because it tears the heat out of you.
The vacuum has a hard time taking heat away at all.
It lacks the particles of contact. Space runs cold only in the sense that an object left alone will eventually lose its heat. That slow drift is the whole point. The process is patient, never the instant icy grip we picture. Space is not cold. Space is empty. All that stellar heat is just light passing through. It streaks across the vacuum without warming a thing.
The heat arrives only when it strikes something solid. A planet, a rock, or the skin of an astronaut. Only then does light turn back into heat. The void is not invited to the party. You could last longer in the frozen heart of an Antarctic glacier. Space does not freeze you faster than the ice. But out there is no air to breathe.
There is no pressure to hold your body together.
And the heat you make has nowhere to go. The cold is the least of your worries. The universe is a place full of endless fires. Billions of stars, that have blazed for billions of years.
And still, between one fire and the next, stretches an immense, silent void,
whose fires cannot fill.
The heat is not missing, but the matter on which that heat could finally rest is. If all this rewired how you think about hot and cold, you will want the original deep dive. We unpacked the whole paradox in our viral video on why space is so cold. Go watch that one next.
It is a fascinating subject.
We learn something new every time we look up.
Space is truly an infinite mystery. Keep looking at the stars.
The answers are out there.
It is all about perspective.
Science is a journey. Keep exploring the unknown. There is so much more to discover.
The universe is waiting for us.
Let us continue this adventure.
Every star has a story. We are just beginning to understand. Space is a vast classroom.
The truck hiked from men's shout. Amari said as he made.
Stay curious, my friends. The cosmos is calling. Keep questioning everything. See you in the next video.